If you thought San Francisco was the cautionary tale, wait until you look across the bridge. Oakland was supposed to be the escape hatch. Lower rent, working-class grit, a little rough around the edges, but full of promise. Instead, it's become the city where two realities exist on the same block. On paper, you see a port that powers the coast, cranes moving like giant metronomes, companies calling it the next great expansion zone. But step off the main road, and the promises evaporate. Tents, tarps, burned-out RVs, entire sidewalks turned into survival lanes. Locals say there are streets you simply don't cross after dark. And nobody argues. What you're about to hear isn't pessimism. It's the part of the picture most people prefer to crop out. Listen to the end, because there's a twist to this story that says more about where America is heading than any speech you'll hear this year. And no, this isn't just about bad choices. It's about a system that quietly decided some people are optional. But that's only the surface. Oakland sits a bridge away from billion-dollar dreams. You can stand on the waterfront and literally see the sunlight bouncing off towers that preach the future. AI blockchain, the metaverse. The words feel expensive. The reality, not so much. On official spreadsheets, the city looks like momentum. Port traffic, logistics contracts, big-ticket investments. Yet the street-level picture tells a different story. Thousands of people without a stable place to sleep. A surge that didn't happen overnight and didn't slow down just because budgets said it should. Walk a single mile, and you'll pass every contradiction the American economy can produce. An artisan cafe with $6 bread, followed by a block where a man washes his face using a bottle he refills from a fire hydrant at dawn. Retirees who spent decades paying taxes now sit on bus stop benches after closing time because it's the closest thing to a wall and a roof. Veterans who did everything right and still couldn't outrun rent that sprinted faster than their pensions. You can point to numbers if you want, but the numbers won't capture the sound of someone zipping up a tent at 3 a.m. because the wind is kicking up, or the way a mother speaks quietly so her kid doesn't scare at sirens. Oakland isn't a single story. It's two realities fighting for the same ground. And those realities collide hardest in the places the maps don't warn you about. Every city has corners people whisper about. In Oakland, some of those corners turned into entire corridors. Locals know the names, even if the guidebooks don't. Industrial strips that look ordinary at noon and feel like a dare after sunset. You'll find stretches where tents run shoulder to shoulder like a second sidewalk. City crews arrive with bulldozers, sweep the debris, clear the tarps, and for a few days, the optics improve. Then, predictably, everything rebuilds. The cycle repeats because nothing replaced what got pushed out. No stable shelter, no long-term housing, not even a place to store belongings so people can show up to a job interview looking like they weren't sleeping outside 12 hours ago. There's the constant thrum of small fires under freeway overpasses where folks try to stay warm or cook a simple meal. Some of those fires turn big and loud, and neighbors post videos because that's the only way anyone seems to notice. Police presence fluctuates. Sometimes it's a wave, sometimes it's a shrug. Either way, trust keeps leaking out of the room. When residents say, "No one's steering," it isn't drama. It's exhaustion. The city will tell you about interventions, pilots, and temporary moves into hotels. And some of those help, briefly. But listen to the people who live here, and you'll hear a pattern. Temporary is the only thing that sticks. And in the shadow of those temporary fixes, whole business districts begin to hollow out. Ask a shop owner downtown to describe a Tuesday morning. You'll get a sigh before you get an answer. Fewer customers, shorter hours, more empty windows with "for lease" signs collecting dust. It's not one dramatic incident that sinks a local store. It's the daily drip of uncertainty, the smell that creeps in from the alley, the arguments that flare up outside the entrance, the morning cleanups before unlocking the door. People aren't necessarily afraid. They're tired. Tired of feeling like public space doesn't belong to the public anymore? For employees, the calculus changes too. Do you get to work early or wait until the block fills up? Do you park close and risk a break-in, or park far and risk something else? Meanwhile, the folks living outside feel it from the other side. Imagine trying to hold on to dignity when you need a bathroom that doesn't ask you to buy something first, or trying to land an interview when your clothes smell like last night's rain and your phone died at 2 a.m. because the battery never makes it to sunrise. This is what decline looks like in real time. It's not flames and chaos. It's a quiet unraveling that shows up in spreadsheets months later. And the driver behind that unraveling is brutal and simple: the cost of survival. Start with rent. For a basic one-bedroom, you're staring at numbers that make no sense for anyone earning what regular people earn. Add utilities, transit, groceries, and the curve starts to look vertical. The middle class responds the only way it can: by vanishing. 2 families to an apartment. Couch surfing that lasts longer than anyone admits. Moves to distant suburbs that swallow hours of your day. People who never imagined living in a car now considering which street is safest at night. You can be fit to work and still be locked out because hiring managers want an address, a steady phone, and a face that doesn't look like it fought with the sidewalk last night. And if you're older, the math gets uglier. One unexpected hospital bill or a cut in hours pushes you from barely stable to sleeping rough. Food prices magnify everything. You start skipping meals to make rent, then you can't focus at work, then the hours slip again. You try to climb back, but each rung is greased. This is how normal people end up on the street with a look they don't recognize in the mirror. Not reckless, not broken, just exhausted. And when adults are barely staying afloat, the ones who drown first are the ones nobody sees. There's a generation growing up inside this crisis. You won't see them in glossy city reports, and they rarely appear in campaign speeches. They sleep in vehicles that don't start, tents that leak, and motel rooms booked a week at a time with vouchers that can vanish on Friday afternoon. School happens when transportation lines up and when shoes aren't completely shot. Homework gets done if there's a light source and a place to sit. Ask a 7-year-old what they remember most, and you'll get answers that shouldn't exist. The sound of late-night shouting, the fear of losing the one blanket that actually stays warm, the daily scavenger hunt for a clean bathroom. Some kids keep showing up to class anyway. They wear donated clothes and fight to act normal. Teachers notice. Some bend rules. Some buy supplies with their own money. They do what they can, but trauma doesn't clock out at 3 p.m. Psychologists have a phrase for what prolonged instability does to a child. You don't need the phrase to understand the outcome. If your early memories are emergency moves and last-minute evictions, what does stability even mean by the time you're 16? You learn to distrust promises. You learn to plan for nothing to last. And when adulthood hits, everything you were supposed to rely on feels imaginary. That's the human cost you won't find in any ribbon-cutting speech. And while kids are learning to live small, the rest of us are learning something worse: how to look away. The tents became part of the urban wallpaper. At first, they sparked outrage, then pity, then debates. Now they're background. That numbness is the real danger. Once people are everywhere and seen as someone else's problem, you stop hearing names. You start using labels. Dangerous. Lazy. Hopeless. Labels make it easier to step over a person on your way to lunch and still feel like a good neighbor. The longer this goes on, the more that invisible wall hardens. Those with a roof live a parallel life with schedules, gym memberships, and meal kits. Those without a roof live on city time. Dawn is laundry. Noon is shade. 1 a.m. is when you finally fall asleep because the block is quiet. These worlds intersect only when there's a complaint, a sweep, or a headline. And in the middle there's a set of public institutions trying to manage optics as much as outcomes. Press releases promise movement. Pilot programs celebrate small numbers. Budgets shuffle columns. But people don't live in columns. They live in hours and days. So why does it keep getting worse even when the city spends more? That's where the whispers start. Follow the dollars, and you'll find something uncomfortable. Emergency fixes are easy to announce and hard to unwind. Hotel vouchers sound compassionate, and they are for families with nowhere else to land. But they're also incredibly expensive and vanish at checkout time. Encampment cleanups cost millions over years and often shift people 3 blocks over. New temporary shelters take months to open and sometimes close just as fast when funding cycles end. Then there are the contracts. Locals whisper about no-bid deals that ballooned, land that suddenly looked attractive for redevelopment, and properties that sat vacant because converting them to real housing was too complicated. You'll hear accusations that some groups profit from managing crisis rather than solving it. You'll hear speculation that political will evaporates any time a permanent fix threatens the wrong donor's interests. Are all the rumors true? Not necessarily. Do they feel believable to residents who keep seeing the same movie? Absolutely. Meanwhile, people trying to do the right thing, outreach workers, nurses, social workers, burn out from the grind of handing out help that doesn't last. They'll tell you the bottleneck isn't kindness, it's keys. Keys to actual doors. Not cot for a night doors. Not, we'll call you if a bed opens doors. Real, lease in your name, you can sleep without fear doors. Until the system prioritizes permanent exits over temporary optics, the math won't change. And Oakland's math isn't just Oakland's problem. What's unfolding here is a trailer for a feature nobody wants to watch. You can find the same ingredients in Los Angeles, Portland, San Diego, Phoenix, Denver, New York: rising costs, stagnant wages for ordinary work, mental health systems that collapse under demand, street-level substance issues that families whisper about because saying it out loud feels like inviting shame. But the deeper cause is simpler than any press conference will admit. We built an economy that treats shelter like a luxury product and then acted surprised when people can't afford it. We built political structures that can fast-track a stadium but take years to approve a building with affordable units. We normalized Band-Aids because Band-Aids are quick, visible, and photograph well. Solutions take stamina. They also step on toes. In Oakland, you feel the outcome in your gut. On a cold morning at San Pablo and West Grand, you'll see steam rising from the street, a row of tents glistening with dew, and a man brushing his teeth with bottled water as if that's what everyone does before work. The city hasn't failed, not exactly. It's something worse. It's adapted. And once a city adapts to visible misery, it takes a shock to unlearn it. So what would that shock look like? Here's what flips the script in places that actually bend the curve. Permanent housing first, not shelter first. A front door ends more chaos than 100 sweeps. Treatment on demand, not a wait list. If someone says today's the day they want help, today is the day. Cheap, fast conversions. Empty hotels, offices, dorms. Pick one. Cut the red tape to months, not years. Support that follows the lease. Case management that sticks around long enough for habits to reset. Real accountability for dollars. Public dashboards. Contract terms with outcomes, not just outputs. Work pipelines that don't require perfection. Transitional employment that allows slips without ejecting people back to zero. None of this is magic. It's muscle. Cities that do it aren't better. They're more stubborn. They choose results over press cycles. Until that muscle shows up in Oakland at scale, the crisis will continue to feel like weather. Everyone complains, nobody changes it. And yet, there's one thing nobody can take away from this place. Under the freeways and behind the headlines are volunteers who show up with coffee at sunrise, teachers who keep spare backpacks and jackets in their cabinets, nurses who spend their lunch breaks hunting down a patient who missed an appointment because her tent moved overnight, restaurant owners who quietly feed people, no cameras, no hashtags, Hope isn't a slogan here, it's a practice. It's the stranger who helps push a broken RV 20 feet so a kid can sleep without hearing "move along" all night. It's the outreach worker who knows 50 first names and uses each one. It's a city that, for all the mistakes, still has people who refuse to give up on each other. That's why this matters. Because the opposite of collapse isn't a miracle. It's a decision. 100 small ones, repeated until the culture shifts. So, let's zoom out. Oakland was once a promise. Affordable enough to dream, tough enough to make it real. Today, the dream is bruised. But the truth nobody wants to say out loud is that this isn't just an Oakland problem. It's a policy choice playing out across the country. When shelter becomes a luxury, when public systems focus on headlines instead of outcomes, when we get used to walking past human beings as if they're part of the scenery, we aren't just losing a city. We're losing ourselves. What happens when hope leaves? Not all at once, but one eviction, one sweep, one try again next month at a time. Where does that curve bend if nothing about our habits changes? Maybe the better question is the simplest one. If we can normalize visible despair, what else are we willing to normalize next? Drop your thoughts below. Share what you're seeing in your city. If you disagree, say why. If you've got a solution, say it out loud. Because ignoring this hasn't worked. And if Oakland is the warning, the time to listen is now.